Good morning, zookeepers. Welcome back to Planet Zoo. And this morning, it's more of a trial than anything. It's to try and make a penguin island. I wasn't too best sure on what's best way of doing this because I did want it so that the island was in the center of the enclosure and there was water all the way around. Hence why I'm using these glass barriers here. And then I was like, after I made this bit, I was like, yeah, how do I get my zookeepers and actual animals onto the island? As you can't just place them, you need zookeeper to bring them to the enclosure, as well as I need that enclosure gate. So in the end, I sort of had an idea. Well, if the animal bridge works for animals, surely it should work for keepers. So that's what I went and did. I eventually come to it. I do make a bridge to the island, which is the best way to do it. Right now, as you can see, I'm just sort of like doing the terrain and getting the island the way I want it, and then sort of figuring out how I'm getting the path around without it distorting too much. On the sharper bits, I'm going to be doing a lot of rocks, so there's a few hills that the penguins can go up and look over the barrier at the people. Obviously, they can swim up to the barrier and look at them, but it just makes some interesting points, especially for getting screenshots as well, having those different variants of heights. And I feel like I love the rock system on here and how you can put the rocks into the ground and sort of make your own mini kind of cliffs. I really do enjoy the rock work in this game. Especially like I said, doing cliffs and things like that. You can make some very interesting structures by using the rocks and make the terrain look very different. Now, for penguins, there isn't too much you can do in the likes of shrubbery, and I did want some trees on this island. I know it's not for them, but it still looks good. It gives the island a little less barren look as well. I do like this, so I can't remember what it's called, but it just reminds me of duckweed, and I really do like it, so I was just sort of placing it everywhere, so it looks like it's kind of like infested the waterways for a bit. I've also, because I was in and out doing different things while making this, I completely forgot to click record when I was making this little penguin shelter. It is really simple though, it's just a few plaster boards made into a square shape, then logs for a roof, a wood beam across it just to make it look a little bit different so it's not logs either side and looks like they're actually attached to something, and then small bedding put in. I do a lot of buffalo grass in the grassy areas just because I prefer that over than the long grass bush. Now what I need to make is the little structure that zookeepers are going to go into to go and get to the bridge to get into the enclosure, which will be going over the path. I was originally going to put like a little zookeeper house in there, like they can do the food and things, but I ultimately decided against it because then I was like, I'm gonna have to mess around the enclosure even more. And it ends up being quite interesting, this building. The bridge I make doesn't work at first. I wasn't too sure why. In the end, I ended up adding some mesh to it. I didn't really bother as well making it look pretty inside because it's not part of it. It's just there for the keepers to get into the enclosure. This is a bit where you use the bridge. I like the idea of making these planks, making white plank bridge across. It adds a sort of like a sort of oceanic kind of theme. And this bit was really annoying me. I don't know why, but even though I was using the straight line thing, they weren't going in a straight line. They were going slightly to the right, no, slightly to the left and down, and it was stressing me out so much. Like, I was like, why is it not just going in the straight line? I don't know why. I don't know if it ever happens to anyone else, but it seems to happen every now and then. That straight line sort of pull doesn't work for some reason, and it doesn't matter which axis you change it to. It just doesn't have it. Anyways, this is the plank bit. I was thinking, well, there's not that much of a gap and the keepers should be able to walk across it. But unfortunately, yeah, they couldn't. So I end up going back to this and adding like mesh wiring over the top, which does add like for a really cool like kind of look and kind of safety feature, let's call it, because obviously the wood could get wet and slippery. You add in the mesh grills in there and that gives somewhere for the keeper's boots to sort of stand on and makes it less slippery happy and more safe. You got to think about health and safety and those risk assessments when making these enclosures. You don't really, but when making an actual enclosure, you do have to put a bit of a risk assessment in there and make it kind of safe for your keepers, because you don't want them getting injured. So I just go back to the building, trying to make it look a little less stand out. I mean, it's going to stand out anyways because I've not built anything around it, but I'm just making it look more building like, and it's there for an actual reason. I do put a door on there, but when I was trying to figure out what was wrong and why the keepers couldn't get into the enclosure, I got rid of the door. I mean, now I know what was actually wrong with it. I could go back and add that door. Again, I completely, because I was taking so much time to figure out why the bridge wasn't working, I didn't record it. Otherwise this video would be a very long video of me trying to figure out why it wasn't working. But yeah, here is the finished product, and I'm really happy with how it looks, especially with it only being like an experiment for me. This is my only second ever like penguin enclosure. I was really opted for having that little penguin island, and the only thing I'd probably do better to this is probably make that water deeper for the penguins, because it isn't actually as deep as I thought it was till like after I figured it out. So I'm probably eventually going to pause it, drain it, get rid of the plants, and make the earth deeper, so then the earth is just not level with the viewing eyes of the customers. But nevertheless, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I never got a shot of it, but they do actually use that little shelter, which I'm pretty happy about, and they look cute inside of it. I think I end up getting a screenshot of it as I realised there's a penguin waking up in there, which was kind of really cool. Like, I love king penguins, they're really interesting to watch. And again, if you're doing this in franchise mode, it's not going to work out too well for you because they don't like plants. So this would be a very barren landscape for you. I mean, it still will look cool. You can put planters around the enclosure, I guess, which would add to sort of like a plantation kind of look to it. But if you want plants on the island, it's just not going to happen. But nevertheless, I'm on Sandbox, so it doesn't worry for me, and I can make my enclosures as well the way I want to. And yeah, again, I'm super happy with this. It's just nice watching the penguins like sort of mingle around the island. Now, going back to that bridge, it is for the keepers, but the penguins can use it, as I found out. Which is kind of annoying is that there is food placement areas within the enclosure, but the first zookeeper to put food in there decided that they would just dump the food inside the keeper house and then run across the bridge to go and put food in the actual food places. And there's our keeper making the food, and as you can see, all the penguins are now running over the bridge, which kind of made it kind of looks cute, especially if you're in the perspective of the guest. You can watch the penguins run over the bridge, and they all go into that house and then eat the fish, and eventually they do make it back to the island. They don't just completely stay in that hut. But anyways, thank you for watching. I hope it's given you some inspiration. Until next time, see you later.